Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. This is Josh at Encore, the Mustang Parts Warehouse, with an instructional video, a product availability video, and a customer approval video all wrapped up into one. So let's start with, why would somebody need or want a mass airflow conversion done to their Mustang or car or truck? Lincoln, F-150, Thunderbird, which I do sell all those kits as well. Main reason is for upgrades. In the previous generation of speed density, you would just have a air inlet tube straight to your filter from your throttle body, and the way the computer would calculate how much air was coming in is it would take a reading from your throttle position sensor. There was a vacuum line hooked up to your map sensor that would take a look at vacuum inside your intake, and it would probably look at the air intake temperature sensor and make its calculation based on very raw inputs. And I've heard in the past that speed density accidentally can get you a little more power, but unfortunately, especially for those in California, in 1988, it became a requirement to have this type of setup. It's more accurate, it's more fuel efficient. And if you're putting upgrades in your car, now you need to have something that is quick, responsive, accurate for the lopiness of your cam. Even though a map sensor does monitor the air pressures inside your intake manifold, it's much better, more responsive, and accurate to have something like an air sensor in there. And the way the air sensor works, for those of you who aren't familiar, let me see if I can, I had it. There's two little coils inside there. They're deep down in there. I've cleaned them off for my customer, Lanny. But those coils get hot and they send a signal back to the computer, the mass airflow computer, and that's an example of one here. They send a signal back to the mass air computer that says, hey, I'm supposed to be, I'm making this number up, 1,500 degrees, and I'm actually showing a reading of 1,200 degrees. The computer then makes a calculation and says, based on how cool you've gone down, where I see your throttle at, what the air temperature is outside, and now what your barometric pressure is, I can give a great fuel economic mixture and can monitor the cam lope a lot better and kind of smooth out the idle. So Lanny's problem, and the reason we discussed all of these pieces today, and we're going to go ahead and send it out, is because he's done a cam upgrade and some cylinder heads, and the car's just not running right. So I've got the instruction book here, which I'm going to send to Lanny and anyone else interested in something like this. Go ahead, let me know. I've got some extra copies available. You can comment down below. You can send me an email to sales@encorempw.com. just like my name here on YouTube, and that's also my eBay handle. But basically what you have to do is you remove your speed density computer and install this piece from Ford. And if you look real close in there, you can see there's some kind of circuit rerouting and some wires added in. This is the cleanest way, the safest way, the least molestation to your wiring harness or vehicle way to get these four wires that never existed prior to 1988 in California and 89 elsewhere. It's the only way to cleanly get the terminals from point A here to point B at a computer. I'm going to go ahead and move this computer right now. It was just here for display. But you do need every piece here shown to get this kit accomplished. I've got Lanny's computer rebuilt and sitting in the kick panel, so in just a moment we'll go ahead and fire up this car. We'll test this meter for him and test the computer out. So, back to the instructions. You need to replace the single tube from the throttle body to the airbox with a sensor and these two tubes here. So the short tube will install between the sensor and the airbox. The long tube will install between the sensor and the throttle body, just like shown here. We're looking at a bone stock 93 LX here with no modifications. So this is the car I'm using to test computers and sensors and everything right now. That is until I get my running engine stand finished over here. That's going to be a mass airflow and complete sensor testing station. So any of you who may want to see that get built and used, go ahead and subscribe to the channel now if you're not already. But as you can see, we got the little block here I mentioned, the extension cord out to the sensor, the 2 tubes, the meter, and then there's this bracket that I've got here, which for Lanny, I cleaned up and brushed up. And I mean, I hope this is adequate for his car. His car is extremely nice. I tried to get the nicest parts together that I could. And Lanny will probably run into this, and anybody else with an earlier Mustang. The strut tower is not ready to receive those fasteners, I don't believe, on an 86, 87, 88. Maybe an 88 California car, but because Mass Air was introduced in the lower 48 states from 89 and newer, I would expect that only that passenger side strut tower is ready to receive the bolts here on those years. And Lanny, as I mentioned to you, I was going to throw in the bolts here that hold the sensor to the bracket. So without spending too much time going over much more, I'll just flip through these pages real quick. It's a pretty thorough thing. I mean, Ford really probably brought this out due to demand more than forethought. I mean, who goes back and offers a kit for a previous year's car? I mean, they were making these kits from, I don't know, probably 89 or so through maybe 95 or a little later for an 86, 87, 88 Mustang. Why? Again, I'm going to say demand. There's some instructions here about that map sensor. Right now, it's got this vacuum line on it, which you're going to have to disconnect after you do the conversion. You can just leave it open to the outside air. But kind of neat. There's a little nostalgia behind this, but most importantly, we need the performance and the real reason that this applies to upgrades. We really need the performance gains out of it that it was created to take care of. And it'll be the most fuel efficient over speed density. Speed density might accidentally give you a little more power, but it's going to be kicking hydrocarbons out the exhaust pipe unburnt, where mass airflow is definitely more fuel efficient. And you know, it's something I specialize in and prefer. So what we're going to do now for Lanny is I'm going to show, and I would do the same for anybody else that buys a computer, other electrical sensors and parts. I test them thoroughly, I clean them, and in the case of a mass airflow processor like this, I take them open, put some new components in it, some capacitors, and check for any damage, clean it. Basically, you can call this a rebuilt or remanufactured computer. So I write the initials on there, the date, the order number, certify that it's been rebuilt, and what state that it's going to. Lanny, this was always a factory sealed unit. The A9S computer, as I explained to Lanny and other folks, it's the 505 speed that actually came with this mass airflow conversion kit. There's no real reason to go crazy and try and find any other processor. If these are actually pretty plentiful. I know the A9L and the A3M, some of those are getting a little fewer and further between, but this one will do just fine. This is what the kit came with, so should have no issues with that. What we're looking for is a steady idle, because what we're testing right now are both the mass air sensor and the computer. So the computer should kick the vehicle on as far as prime the fuel pump and stop. Fuel pump shouldn't keep running with the key forward. We're also looking for the check engine light to give us a warning before we crank. And after it's running, the check engine light should be off. That tells us that the sensor's good, the computer's awake and alert, and it doesn't see anything that it doesn't like, whether it's a sensor problem with the vehicle or an internal problem with the processor. And I'll also let the idle settle down. I'll rev this thing up a few times, make sure that it doesn't have any breakups or popping or anything weird, and box it up and ship it out. So here we go. Okay, the check engine light is solid, like it should be. I'm going to flip the key one more time just so you can hear the fuel pump operation is just like it should be. And now we're going to fire it up. So that's right about where you want it. That's usually about where they stay. They don't go too much lower than about 900. I'll very slowly start bringing the RPMs up. I'm holding it steady right there. Give it about another 30 seconds. I'll rev it up a few more times. But that's really about as good as the computer should operate. The check engine light has not come back on after about a minute or so of running, and went through the whole power band without breaking up, coughing, popping. And when I let it idle back down, it caught itself and went right back to that 900. So we'll do a couple more revs. How she does, I'm gonna mash it. All right, well, there you have it. So we have a tested sensor, a rebuilt, tested computer, and a little bit of understanding as to what parts are included with the kit, how they operate, and of course, you know where to get them. Encore Mustang parts, you can find me on eBay under Encore MPW. You can find me on my website, encorempw.com. And of course, you can comment down below. So thank you everyone who's still here for your attention. Thank you, Lanny, for your business and your patience. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and I look forward to bringing more content and talking to you all soon. Have a good day.